the world. Hello, I'm Beverly O'Connor. Also tonight, the social dilemma in Bangladesh after the government imposes the death penalty for rape. Well, tensions are rising in Thailand after months of largely peaceful anti-government protests. These are the latest pictures from Bangkok, where pro-democracy protesters and supporters of the Thai monarchy traded punches and threw various objects at each other as riot police tried to keep them at bay. Early in the day, the anti-government camp stormed the Democracy Monument, casting aside the plants that had been placed there to deter them. They're calling on the current Prime Minister, who's been in power since he led a military coup in 2014, to resign. Let's go to our Southeast Asia correspondent, Mazoe Ford. Mazoe, things seem to be getting fairly tense in Bangkok. What happened over the course of the day?
Well, good evening, Bev. The anti-government protesters actually brought their rally forward by 6 hours and started quite early this morning because they'd heard that some royalists, different camps of royalists, were going to try and block their route. What they were going to do and what they did later in the day was march from the Democracy Monument up to Government House, demanding that Prayut Chan-o-cha, the Prime Minister of Thailand, resign, that the constitution be rewritten, that there would be an end to the harassment of opposition activists, and also for the monarchy to be reformed, which breaks a long-standing taboo in Thailand. Most people see the monarchy there as a revered institution, and that these protesters and this growing protest movement is talking about it even more. It has concerned them. So as the protesters marched up towards the Government House, there was also the arrival of more and more royalist groups and security forces dressed in the royal colour yellow. Police did a pretty good job of keeping the opposing groups apart. However, there were a few scuffles, a few punches thrown and some objects thrown as well. But for the most part, it hasn't descended into the violence that people feared, that people saw during street violence leading up to that 2014 coup, Bev.
Indeed. Well, the anti-government protesters, though, Mazoe, seem to be quite determined. Do you feel that they've got strong support in terms of what they're hoping to gain?
Their support was growing over the course of 3 months. This protest movement started really back in August, and every time these protesters have held a rally, it has gotten bigger and bigger, it has to be said. Today it's a weekday, a work day in Thailand, and there are still thousands of people who have turned out. They've become more bold in their demands, and they're not afraid of being arrested. We even saw 20 of these activists arrested just yesterday. They were setting up a tent for today's rally to have a bit of a marshalling zone ahead of the march. They clashed with police, some threw blue paint at them. 20 people were arrested because of all of that. But they don't seem deterred, Bev. They seem to want to carry on with their demands for monarchy reform, for the Prime Minister to resign, the constitution to be rewritten, and the end of harassment to those opposition activists.
The monarchists also seem to have quite a lot of support. Is it as broad as, I mean, they're all dressed in those yellow shirts, and you referenced those terrible clashes between the red and yellow shirts in 2014. But do the monarchists also have broad support?
Well, they will certainly tell you that the answer to that is yes. There are 70 million people in Thailand, and there might be tens of thousands of protesters, but whereas the rest of Thailand, people who support the monarchy would tell you. We spoke to some royalists earlier in the week who said that opinion polls indicate that while the support for the activists has certainly grown, it is not yet representative of the majority view in Thailand. Thai people grow up knowing that the monarchy is to be respected and revered. That is what they're taught at home, in their schools, universities, in the workplace. You go to the movies and there is the picture of the Thai king on the cinema, and the anthem plays at school on assembly every day. So to break this long-standing taboo, as the protesters have by calling for monarchy reform, is unprecedented in Thailand. And the royalists say that it is insulting to the monarchy, and they want the government to prosecute particularly these protest leaders, but to keep a very close eye on their movement.
Good to talk, Mazari. Thank you very much.